Welcome. I'm Pete Rush with Seattle Center, and I'm joined today by Kendall Hodson from King County Elections, and we're here to talk about the upcoming presidential election. With just a few weeks before ballots show up in our mailboxes, we're going to talk about what voters need to know to make sure that their vote counts, and what King County is doing to secure our election. Kendall, thanks for joining us today. It's good to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here.
So let's dive right into it. I think it's fair to say that 2020 has been far from a normal or boring year. Let's start with the pandemic. How has that impacted elections here in King County? And what is your team doing to make sure that voters and your staff stay safe?
Yeah, I think the good news is we are possibly some of the best jurisdictions in the country here in Washington in terms of handling an election during a pandemic. We've been voting by mail for over a decade now, so our voters are used to it and our teams are used to it. That said, of course, there's quite a few things that have changed. First and foremost, our staff safety is the most important thing for us. So right now, a lot of our staff are still working from home, actually. If you give us a call for customer service, you're most likely going to reach somebody who is working from their house. Of course, as we start to process ballots, you can't really do that remotely. So we'll have hundreds of folks coming into our headquarters in Renton to process those ballots. And that facility is truly transformed. So when they walk in, they're going to get temperature screened. We're going to do a symptom check for all staff and all visitors to the building. Everyone's wearing a mask. Everyone's checking their belongings in lockers as they come in. They're going to go upstairs to their workstation. We've completely moved around workstations to get everyone 6 feet apart. There's lots of plexiglass and barriers. It really is a completely different work environment. The same is actually true for our vote centers. So while we do vote by mail, we of course still have some in-person voting opportunities for folks. That might be if they need to register in person, because we let folks do that up until Election Day in Washington State. Or if people just kind of forgot their ballot or misplaced it or can't find it, they can come get a replacement ballot as well. For a lot of those sites that will have in-person service, we'll offer car-side service and drive-through service. So they'll check in with our staff. They'll get the materials they need, fill it out in the safety of their vehicle apart from our staff, and then return it that way as well. So it does look really different in terms of how that in-person voting will happen this election.
Yeah, but it sounds like you have all the bases covered.
Yeah.
That's terrific. There's been a lot of talk nationally about voter fraud and vote by mail. How does King County Elections protect our votes and ensure that our elections remain secure?
Yeah, I think a really important thing to know is that in vote by mail, despite what you hear, voter fraud is almost unheard of. We do lots of things to make sure that both our voter rolls and the votes being counted are protected. So to start with the voter rolls, that is a system that's online. So it's really important you can register online in Washington State. You can track your ballot online. Another really important feature is that we're sharing data across counties. So because you can register until Election Day in Washington State, we want to make sure that if you've already cast a ballot in Whatcom County, you can't come register in King County. So that all of that information is online. So what that looks like is a lot of cybersecurity protections. We've got a person on our staff who is a specialist in cybersecurity. We also train all of our staff on an annual basis in cybersecurity protocols. And then we have lots of other network protections in place to make sure that that system stays secure. We're monitoring traffic and IP addresses to see if we're seeing unusual traffic. We're scanning all email attachments that come into the system to make sure that they don't have malware or any sort of security risks. So we're doing lots of things on that end to make sure that all of that information is protected. We are also checking that data really regularly with lots of databases. So we're looking at vital statistics and public health information. We're looking at obituaries. We're sharing data across lots of other states to make sure that we have current and accurate voter rolls, to make sure that only folks who are supposed to be getting a ballot are getting a ballot. On the other side of the equation, of course, is our tabulation system. So how we actually process ballots and scan data is a completely separate system. It's completely offline. So what we do for that is really a lot of physical security. So all of our ballots are processed on the second floor of our headquarters in Renton. That's a secure floor. You have to have a badge to get onto that floor, to both get on and off the floor, in fact. We've got specific areas that actually require fingerprint access. So only a handful of staff to get into the area where we're storing ballots and into that room where all of that tabulation data is stored. So we've got layers and layers of security. We've got 50 different monitors and security cameras across the building. We've got webcams that are streaming our ballot processing all the time when we're processing ballots. So there's a lot that goes into securing your ballot.
I would say it sounds very thorough. I'm curious, what are the benefits of vote by mail?
Yeah, we think vote by mail is by far the best system and the best way to vote. A couple of the things that we really like about it is, one, it gives us a lot more control over how ballots are processed. So when King County was voting with polling locations, we had 700 different sites across the county where voters could cast their ballot. That's a lot to manage, and it's a lot of risk to manage. At this point, every single ballot that a voter casts is processed on the second floor of our facility in Renton. So it lets us have a lot more security and a lot more control. I think the other thing is that our voters really appreciate the convenience of voting by mail. So you can sit down with your cup of coffee, with your voter's pamphlet, with your computer to do your research. You can do all of those things with your ballot without having to go to a polling location.
Are there any drawbacks to the system?
I think that probably what we hear certainly from reporters and voters and certainly folks in the media is we don't usually have election results complete on election night. So in Washington State, we don't certify the election for 3 weeks. That lets voters have time to address any signature issues. It lets those trailing ballots in the mail that might have been mailed from all over the country, even all over the world, get to us, and lets us count those votes. So typically, we're going to report on about 55 to 60% of the total results of an election on election night. We'll actually get probably 60,000 ballots in the mail that are all on time after election day. So I think probably the one thing we do here is you're not able to call races on election night because we just don't have them all in. We really firmly believe that we'd rather count every single vote. We'd rather take the time to do it right and make sure everyone's voice is heard. So we appreciate that, but we recognize it's maybe not as timely as folks would like sometimes.
Understandable, but it does sound like a way more secure way to handle the situation. Here's a controversial question. The United States Postal Service has been in the news a lot lately. How will changes at the USPS impact our ability to cast our vote on time?
The good news is we have a decade-old relationship with our local and regional USPS representatives. So going into election, we meet monthly. Once ballots are mailed, we actually meet daily with those folks to talk about any sort of issues. The other good news is we get really detailed delivery data for how things are going. So in the August primary election, we saw really normal mail delivery times. 99.96% of ballots were delivered within 5 days of their mailing, which is what we normally see. So
wow, yeah.
we're feeling really encouraged. We're seeing normal postal times. I understand that folks are concerned, but they should have confidence that the USPS is going to be able to handle this. The other thing to keep in mind is we have 73 drop boxes across the county. So if voters are at all concerned, those are there for folks to return their ballot that way as well.
That's the method that I prefer to use. So when should voters expect their ballot to arrive in their mail?
Yeah, we'll mail ballots on October 14th. We actually mail our overseas and our service voters and our out-of-state ballots 45 days ahead of Election Day.
Wow.
So those are actually already out and in those voters' hands. But for our regular voters, it's October 14th. And usually voters will see them within a couple of days of that mail date. If they haven't seen them by October 19th, they should give us a call. They should go online, and we'll make sure they get a replacement ballot. One thing we're really encouraging is for voters to return their ballot as early as possible. That's going to do two things. One, if there are any issues with the Postal Service, it lets us stay ahead of those. And the other thing it does is it lets us really report meaningful results on election night. The sooner we have your ballot, the sooner we can get it processed and get it into that election night posting for results.
Of course, makes sense. So let's say I'm your average voter and I want to help somehow. Are there ways that I can volunteer or get involved?
Yeah, we are actually challenging King County voters to hit 90% turnout for this election.
Wow.
I know that seems ambitious.
It does.
We think it's doable. Voters have really eclipsed all of our targets in recent elections. So just for context, in the 2016 primary election, we saw 37% turnout. In this past primary election, we saw 56% turnout. It's almost 20 points ahead in terms of turnout. So we really think 90% is doable, but it's going to take everyone. So we always appreciate folks who are wanting to help out. We do actually have all paid staff who help us conduct the election, and we are hiring. So if anyone is looking for a short-term job assignment, that's from 3 weeks to just a couple of days, they can go onto our website and find more information for how they can do that. For others who are maybe looking for a little bit less of a commitment, talk to your family, talk to your friends, your neighbors, make sure they have a plan to vote. So all those same things that we want you to be doing, we want you to help your friends and family do too. So make sure your registration information is up to date. You can go online and do that. It takes 2 minutes. Set an alarm on your phone, on your calendar to make sure that by October 19th, you've gotten your ballot. You can track your ballot. So we really want folks to be going online, making sure we've got it, and making sure that you don't have any issues with your signature. Maybe it didn't match or you forgot to sign. So really making sure that everyone has a plan to vote and to help everyone around you to do the same thing.
It really is a grassroots effort.
Absolutely.
Yeah?
We've got some fun social media graphics too on our website, some posts, some fun things you can share. So it's going to really take all of us if we're going to hit 90% turnout.
That's great. Every bit counts. Here's an important question. How can voters be sure that their vote counted?
Yeah, absolutely. Typically, we allow lots of observers and tours. It's really fun. Normally during a presidential, we have field trips, we have community organizations, lots of folks who come down and watch us. Unfortunately, we can't really do that right now because we're trying to keep folks out of the building. But one, they can go online to those webcams and watch us process ballots. So it's a great way to really kind of see the process in real time and understand how it works. The other really important thing to do is to track your ballot. So you can enter a couple pieces of information on our website and you can see when your ballot is mailed to you. You can see when we've received it. As soon as we get it, we'll scan it in and it'll pop up there as having been received. It'll let you know right then and there if there's any issues with your signature. You can actually download the form and get it resolved right on the website. And then it'll tell you when it's counted. So that's a great way to make sure that your voice has been heard.
Kendall, thank you. This has been very informative and I would say reassuring to hear this information. Any last advice for our viewers?
No, please make sure that your voice is heard this fall. Vote early and make sure you tell your friends and family to do the same.
Terrific. Thank you for joining me in this conversation today. And a reminder that the election is November 3rd. Make sure to get your ballots in by then, and let's make sure that your vote counts.